Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Hard Hats and Headspace. I'll shortly be joined by Dr. Nancy Doyle, the founder of Genius Within, also a great friend of mine who I've been dying to get on this podcast for ages. So today's the day. We'll delve into what Genius Within is about, but also Nancy's background and history, things we've done together, including Panto, living in the village, and I'm wearing my Plumpton Athletic Football Club top because Genius Within sponsor our club. So maybe we'll get into that as well. So I hope you enjoy this week's podcast. So welcome back to Hard Hats and Headspace. A very special guest for me today, Dr. Nancy Doyle, good friend, and we've known each other quite a while. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you very much for having me, Stuart, Mr. Wallace. I'm very happy to be here.
This long-planned podcast.
Yeah, two ADHDers plan a podcast. Should we do it now? What about now?
Yes, now. Let me just go home first. So yeah, that's the planning. Gone in. No, we've been thinking about doing this for a little while, and since I've done it, first episode, I thought I'd love to get Nancy on this podcast and talk about the things that matter to me in my life, and how intertwined our worlds are with, mental health, men's mental health, neurodiversity, and just helping people have the best time at work. It essentially, for me, so important, and inclusion in all sorts of ways. So for those who don't know you, there won't be many, obviously, please, would you like to tell our viewers, listeners, a little bit more about you?
Sure.
Where you're
So
from?
I'm the leader of the Astray, an aspiring curmudgeon. No, I'm an occupational I am all those things, but I'm also an occupational psychologist, which is something I didn't get into as an initial career choice because I didn't really have an initial career choice, because I was kind of careering through early education. But it's something that I fell into because actually work was my salvation. So I was an undiagnosed ADHD at school in the 80s and 90s, which wasn't a permissible thing for a female to be. So you were only an ADHDer if you were a boy that was throwing chairs. If you were a girl that was kind of habitually truant, and smoking lots of fags, but still getting decent grades occasionally, then ADHD wasn't available diagnosis for you. So I had lots of other diagnoses. It was like collecting brownie badges, so anxiety, depression, eating disorders, school phobia. That was my favorite one. That was like the jackpot when I got that diagnosis, because I was like, right, that's it. I'm not going back. That's that then. Thank you very much. Yeah, totally.
I'll take that letter.
So I kind of, I made it through school by just doing work on my own, really, and not going. And then I absolutely couldn't take that approach for A levels. It didn't work at all. And I left home when I was 16, and I was sort of, flapping around. And one day my granddad took me out for a drink, and he said to me, Nancy, you need to learn some discipline. This education thing is never going to work for you until you've learned how to discipline yourself. You need to go and get a job. Go and get a job, do some work. I'd always had Saturday jobs like most kids growing up in the 80s and 90s. I was babysitting the world and his wife from about the age of 12, working in the greengrocers, do you know what I mean? All the rest of it. But my granddad was right. So I went and got a job, and I got a job as a carer. I worked in a care home for adults with learning disabilities, physical disabilities, autism, various things. And I found that I actually really liked work. Work was good for me. My granddad was not wrong. It was the first time I'd ever done what I was told in my entire life. And my granddad was absolutely right. I think I only did it because it annoyed my mum so much, because she really wanted me to get A levels and go to university. But I was like, no, I'm going to go to work. And then what are you going to do? But it ignited quite a passion in me for psychology, because I could see where things were going wrong. I had these I had like key patients, key clients that were I was their key person. And I would go to these meetings with psychologists who would sort of set the program for what I was supposed to do with these people. And they'd just be talking nonsense. And I'd be like, you don't know what you're talking about. And none of
Yeah.
the other psychologists I'd ever met had known what they were talking about either. And so I just got really cross and went, I'm going to study psychology because none of you seem to know what you're talking about. And it's really irritating. And you're all really woolly and floppy. And it's all custard creams and cardigans. And, ooh, well, let's have a think about that, shall we? And it's like, that's
Yes.
actually not very helpful. So, I eventually got to university. It did take me quite a long, convoluted path to get there, but I did eventually get there. But about halfway through my undergraduate degree, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to do clinical psychology. I wasn't going to be able to do mental health because I was still too vulnerable myself, if I'm honest,
Yeah.
and it would have been quite triggering. And also, the only way to get into clinical psychology at the time was to work for the NHS. And I realized I was going to really struggle to work for the NHS because it's a very large organization. It's quite inflexible. The
Yeah.
junior psychologists would be the lowest of the low, and I would be kind of battling my way through. And also, they had this ridiculous rule at the time, which is that you could only get the NHS to pay for your training to be a clinical psychologist if you were younger than 28.
What?
And I just thought, what a load of old nonsense. So basically, the entire profession is filled with well meaning white middle class women who have been inducted into this industry before they have any life experience of their own. And I was quite
Yeah.
motivated to work with young teens who were struggling for obvious reasons. But I
Yes.
had enough sense to know that I couldn't do that job unless I understood what it was like to be a parent. Because if you're working
Yeah.
with a child who's mentally unwell, you are not working with that child. You're working with the whole family because that child is in a system that they have no control over, that they can't get out of. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be biased working with children because I know nothing about being a parent. And I would rather go and live my life and come back to clinical psychology in my 40s or 50s and do it then. But there was no
Yeah.
pathway to do that. And I actually am still not sure that there is a good pathway to do that. So it just really annoyed me. And then I kind of fell
Yeah.
into this module about workplace psychology. Um, and I kind of aced it without even trying because I worked full time through my degree. I carried on doing care work, and I used to run the out of hours emergency hotline for people putting old ladies to bed
Mm.
across London. It was very good. It was very funny. Need to get the 79 bus and go and take over Patience's round because her
I can
car's broken
imagine you
down.
doing that.
79 bus, the 89 bus. You need to see me. And then I had people who used to just ring because they were lonely. So I had this lovely lady. She used to ring, and she's going, "I've forgotten the alphabet. Can you remind me?" She
Get
was
X out of tenner
class.
pads.
I know. So, oh no, the best one. Oh, the best one. I was working with this is a bit of a tangent, so bear with me. But I was working
They're
with my
going to
mate
happen
Paul.
through this, aren't they?
Yeah, Paul had never been a carer, so he was working in the out of hours emergency service, but he'd never been a carer. So I was working with him one day in the office, and I could see him getting more and more agitated. I was on the phone to someone else, and he was kind of going up and up and up and up and up. So I was like, I need to get this person off the phone and find out what's going on with Paul. So I put the phone down. I said, Paul, what's going on? He went, oh, Mrs. Rooney, she's had an explosion at the back. I need to call the fire brigade. I was like, no, you don't, darling. She's got bowel cancer. You need to call out. Please don't send the fire brigade round.
Don't send the fire brigade. It doesn't need hosing down that much.
Anyway, blah blah blah. Back to how I got into what I was doing and who the hell I am. So
yes.
So I kind of did this module on work psychology, and I just really really liked it. And it was all about kind of how do you work out what good work performance is? How do you know whether someone's going to be good at a job? How do you know whether someone's going to be bad at a job? How do you find people's niche? How do you find your own talent? How do people progress through a career? How do you make up a career? Is it something that you inherit? Do you get is it something that you choose, that you have kind of empowerment and decision decision-making power over, or is your career much more of a feature of where you grow up and who you grow up with? Like, to what
Yeah.
extent are those barriers there, and how do organizations function, and what do we mean when we say a good culture, and what do we mean when we say
Yeah.
good communication at work? And I just found the whole thing fascinating. So I ended up doing it, and my link back to mental health with it all was, I found out in that module that around 70% of people hate their jobs. A-
Wow.
and I was just like, well, that sucks, because you spend a lot of
Yeah.
time at work.
You do.
And and I don't hate my job. I actually quite like my job, especially working with
Yeah.
Paul. He was hilarious. Um, but so yeah, I actually quite like my job, and that actually is what makes my life viable. Is the fact that I like my job, and I like going to work, and I like
Yeah.
the people that I work with. And I liked caring. I liked care work, and I just thought, this is terrible.
Mm.
So what if we could make workplaces more fun? What if workplaces were less stressful? What if more people went into jobs that they liked, that they could do? What would that do to the overall mental health of the nation? So rather than being a psychologist that kind of pulls people out of the water when they're drowning, I
Yeah.
decided to become a psychologist that went upstream and tried to stop them falling in the first place.
Yeah. Preventative, or
Totally.
you're thinking about it up front. Yeah. And we do. Um, Obviously, construction guys come to the site. It's invariably guys, right? Come to the site, and you sit down. And we do this wheel. And when I saw this wheel of behaviours when I first started, I thought, well, this is a load of HR bollocks. But actually, it's all right. It's quite good when I truly believe in it now. Like, be inclusive, be your best.
Mm,
Go around the 7 behaviours, and you can see people looking and thinking like I did. I'm like, hold on.
mm,
If you come to work and I've thought about wayfinding signs with actual arrows to follow rather than going next left and you might be dyspraxic, see, I do listen, right? That might help. Or if, when we talk about being inclusive and being respectful, you hear people go, why does he get to go and pray when I'm
mm,
working? You're like, ask him. Don't be a tit about it, but ask nicely.
mm,
Be respectful and understand. And then you might go, oh, fair enough.
mhm,
But allowing that person to be respected for their difference from you means they'll feel safe. They're not worrying about what you're doing, and you're not wondering what they're doing. You get on with your job because
mhm.
you're happier. You feel safer in being yourself. And the same goes with, you know, all difference. If you try your best to make your site systemic or your workplace systemically inclusive, then surely it's going to be a safer place. Surely people are going to be happier in their workplace,
I mean, there is
and you're
like
going to rally around.
decades of evidence for this, Stu, by the way.
Yeah.
Occupational psychologists have been collecting this. Is it better if people are happy at work, basically? If you do good things at work, people will
Mm.
feel good, and that's good. If you do bad things at work, people will feel bad, and that's bad. That is essentially my
Yeah.
profession. That's basically the knowledge that we've
Ta-da! Right up we
contributed
go.
for
Pop.
the world. Yes, that and goal setting theory. But apart, but yeah. So no, but the evidence does actually bear that out. Organizations that have high levels of psychological safety do better. They are more
Yes.
successful. They are more
Cool.
creative. They are more productive. Conversely, organizations with poor psychological safety do worse. So there was a
Yeah.
huge flood of research. You remember when we had Deepwater Horizon, the big BP oil spill,
Yeah.
and we also had the Midstaff's hospital systemic failures, and those things were all going on at the same time. And lots of occupational psychologists got really interested in risk management and studying risk management, and why did these things not surface? Why did they end up such a massive disaster?
Yeah.
And they identified that psychological safety was the cause. So in both situations, there were lots of people that predicted what was going to happen. There were lots of people who could see those disasters coming, who knew about
Yeah.
it, who could have told you exactly how it would have played out, and none of them felt able to raise the flag. None of them felt that they could say anything to anyone other than their mates in the break room. They didn't feel they could take it to management. They didn't feel they could take it above management if they went to the first layer of management and got a knockback. They didn't feel they could take it anywhere else. They did take it to their managers. The managers didn't know what to do with it. The managers got a knockback. So the principle of psychological safety, which is that you are in a workplace where it is safe to talk about things that are going wrong. And if you do that, you're not going to be chastised or belittled or ignored. But also, it's safe to take risks. So you could try something that no one has tried before. And if it fails, you know you're not going to lose your job. And those two things, so talking about problems is what you need in order to prevent big disasters, and safety to take risks is what you need in order for there to be creativity and growth and innovation and productivity. So this idea of psychological safety is actually fundamental to good business, to good work practice, to good work ethics, to good communication. But not enough managers know how to create it, and not enough individuals feel confident to enact it once it has been created. It's not a top-down thing. It's not like, well, if your boss is fine, it will all be fine. It's a two-way street. Everybody's got to engage in this principle. Everybody's got to be committed to it. So, but it takes a lot of work. It's a cultural phenomenon. You can't just press a button, send in everyone on a training course and have it happen. It won't work.
Yeah, you've got to. I think people have got to experience it. And the ability to manage up and training people to manage up is really important. And I'm fortunate that I get to go on all different sites across Mace, and I see excellent practice, in some other places, and some other not intentionally, but you think, what on earth would you say that, because they haven't learned a different way. And I think that is where, people must get sick of me going, well, at Euston we do this, or at Heathrow we do that. Well, on different sites. And they're like, yeah, on my site we do it differently. Okay, I'm just trying to help you learn from the mistakes we did elsewhere. And you can see where that psychological safety is in place or is better. You can see people more willing to go, Stu, this thing's not right on our project. But you go to other projects and they go, look, we can put our hands up. I had this last week. I did a workforce engagement meeting. We can put our hands up, Stu, and it's all right you saying it. You're a director of Mace, but we work in the middle, between us. We could shout out, probably won't be here next week. I'm like, no, nonsense. No, I'm telling you. I said, well, if that happens, you ring me, because that ain't happening on this job anymore. You need to give people the confidence to have that license to speak up, because if they're not confident you have got their back, then they're not going to do it, right? And psychological safety. We are the world's best at. There's a trip hazard. Something might fall from height. Delivery's got to come in a certain way. Physical stuff. Nowhere. Not there yet. Not anywhere there yet. A lot of our industry likes to put a badge on. But in terms of seeing them actually do something different. And I think I said to you earlier before we start recording, every week on this podcast, I've mentioned Genius and what doing the Genius Finder did for me in helping me just be better as a day. I didn't need a diagnosis to do it. I was like, I don't care whether I've got a diagnosis. I'm clumsy and I walk into things. So stop and think and plan your route when you walk around a corner. Don't just barrel in, I think my favourite one is the ADHD in the middle of a site. We'll go and stand against a wall. You've lost half of distractions. I was like, fuck yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's very simple. A lot of this stuff is not rocket science. It's actually really straightforward. But sometimes you just need to think about it, don't you? But that's what a good culture of psychological safety would do anyway. You'd have people sharing ideas, and you'd have people going, "Oh, I can see what you're struggling with there. I've tried this. Why don't you try that?" I think a good way to get it going is to just role model having it be normal to talk about problems, and having it be normal to talk. And that's why what you're doing on the podcast is so important, actually, because you're
Yeah.
normalizing talking about problems. You're normalizing talking about mental health. And we all have mental health. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not great. And how we
Hallelujah.
transition, how we transition from great mental health to not great mental health and back again is,
Yeah.
that's the secret of life, isn't it? Sort of
Yeah.
spotting those patterns and those trends. And there's a lovely model, the kind of neurosequential model of well-being. And the first thing that you have to be is physically safe.
Yeah.
Actually, you don't
Yeah.
get psychological safety if you're not physically safe. So you need physical safety, then you need relationship safety and communication safety, and then you can have kind of personal identity and plan safety. So those layers have to start with a baseline of physical safety, and knowing where you are, and knowing how to get on with your job, and knowing how to use the space around you, and having safety equipment is a first step.
Yeah. And I think like I said, the basics, not basics. Basics are really important to get right because everything else flows from that. But beginning of every day, we do what's called a daily activity briefing. And we might hand out a sheet of paper. Right, we've done that. We've given it everyone. And I answer and think, well, can everyone read? Can everyone read
Mm,
English? Can everyone
mm,
read?
mhm.
Full stop. Um,
Absolutely. It's not a given.
and no, it's not.
And
But
particularly not in your industry. There's a lot of
yeah,
dyslexic people working in construction, because actually being dyslexic is usually associated with really strong visual and spatial and mechanical reasoning skills. So it's a natural profession for people who think that way.
yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, you will have a lot of dyslexics in the construction industry. So yeah, not being able to read the safety briefings is probably something that people don't want to disclose and don't want to speak up about, but it could be really, really important.
And I think what we've tried to do, I've seen from our safety team do, is pictorialize those briefings.
Mm,
Put a
mm,
picture in of someone doing such. I mean, you can't make a cartoon or whatever, or a whole film of it, because otherwise, well, you might as well have done the job while you were doing the film. But um, trying to make it easier and more accessible for people to understand what you need them to do. We're
mm,
not there. I can see people this is why I say we're late to the party, right? Because we're starting to start to realize we need to do these things. And as someone uh, enlightened, if you like, from listening to you and Jackie, obviously, and all the people around me that are trying to promote a better way of work,
mm.
I can see the inklings. It's starting to come together. We're not there yet. We're not there yet, and I don't think we can ever stop
No,
trying.
I don't think any industry is there yet. I mean, I think interestingly, the military are probably the furthest ahead. Some of the military,
Well,
definitely the navy. The navy are getting there, and a lot of the kind of back office military. I call them back office, but you know what I mean. The people that are analysing the data and listening to people, those people, they're quite on it.
oh,
Um, they
the
are they
GCHQs.
Yeah, 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 yeah. They're on it. But most industries are not on it. And I think where we've got to in the neurodiversity inclusion movement at the moment is a real sticking point around what is reasonable. So it
Yeah.
feels like we've had a huge uplifted. I mean, I've been doing this work since 2002. So I started doing dyslexia diagnosis and coaching and assessments for neurodivergent people in
Um,
2002. It's a long time. So just so everyone knows, obviously that was before it was cool. So I just want to just have that, notice.
yeah.
I was here way before it was cool. Now it's
Got your
cool.
badge first.
Yeah, absolutely. I got my badge first. Everyone knows about it now, And when you kind of go and look for, well, how do I do neuroinclusion? How do I be neuroinclusive? You've got this massive tick list of kind of, make sure you do pictorial diagrams in your safety briefings, and make sure you put signs up, and make sure you do this, and make sure you do that. And it just feels like an overwhelming amount of work. And people are like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know how I can process all that.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm just about hanging on to my job as it is in terms of day to day and to-do lists. So it feels like an overwhelming amount of work. And then you've got this other sort of nuance to it, which is, so if someone is disabled because they have a communication difference, am I allowed to talk to them about their communication? And so if you've got someone who can't follow instructions and they're struggling to remember instructions because they've got a working memory deficit, or a different kind of memory set deficit associated with head trauma or ADHD or dyslexia, or being autistic, then but you still need them to follow instructions because you work in a safety
Yeah.
critical environment. And if they don't follow those
Yeah.
instructions, not only are they putting themselves at risk, but they're probably putting other people at risk. So what do you do about
Absolutely.
that? And I think that's where industries like construction, where it is safety critical, have come to a bit of a full stop. It's like, how do we get past this? Because we need to be able to manage this. And my strong message out to everybody at the moment is, you have to manage that. Somebody having a communication difficulty doesn't mean we lower the standards of work for them. It means we help them
Yeah.
to meet the standard, but they've still got to meet the
Absolutely.
standard. The standard still exists. The standard is the standard for a reason. People didn't make that up about safety briefings. No one just decided to do it because it was fun and they wanted to annoy everyone at the beginning of the day. They are important, and people need to be able to digest that information. So yes, you can vary the sensory format in which you give the information. You can talk it through as well as give it in a flow chart and a set of bullet points. You can have some diagrams on the wall. You can make videos, actually, and actually that's the sort
Yeah.
of thing AI is pretty good at. And you can have little videos that people can have on their phones if they need to check how something works. So there's lots of things you can do, but people still have to be able to remember that. They have to be able to access that, and they have to stick to the rules. And if they can't do that, then they are a liability. And whatever their disabling condition is, that is a different matter. No
Yes.
one would expect a wheelchair user to be a firefighter. There is a limit to the
Absolutely.
Equality Act. And that's what
It's
we've got.
reasonably practicable, isn't it? What's
Yeah,
there?
exactly. It's got to it's this idea of reasonableness. And there's so many cases going through the court system at the moment related to neurodivergence, and all of them are about whether it was reasonable or not. So
Yeah.
you've got people that have asked for things that were really quite straightforward, that they didn't get, and then the employer ends up, with paying it with a huge payout. But equally, you've got individuals asking for things that were completely unreasonable, like the case of McQueen versus the General Optical Council. He thought it was completely reasonable to lose his temper in meetings and shout at his colleagues because he was autistic, and the courts found that no, that was not reasonable. And yes, the organization could have supported him to not get quite so cross all the time and to have more adjustments before he lost his temper. But actually, going into meetings and losing your temper all the time creates hostility. It reduces psychological safety. The other people he work with might have needs as well. Neurotypical
Yes.
people aren't necessarily the most well-resourced humans in the world who can just accommodate everybody all the time. That's not how it works. There's got to be some give and take. And so the courts did not find in his favour. It went to appeal. They still did not find in his favour. So that's now settled law. That's precedent law, that there are some things that some people might ask for that are just not reasonable. So the law is actually providing quite a good guidance on this. I'm doing a webinar in October with one of my new bezies, Emma Bartlett, who is
Oh,
an
amazing. I
employment.
like Emma.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's a specialist in the Equality Act, and she and I do this sort of double act where she brings up all the case law, like, is extra time reasonable? Mm, not really, not permanently, occasionally during change. But she'll bring up the case law and the stories like the one I just told you about what's happened, and then I kind of help people translate that into practice. So this is where I think the work is at the moment for neurodiversity. It's kind of going, okay, there's lots of us now, we get it, everyone's aware of who we are,
Yeah.
there's neurodivergence, good things happen with neurodivergence, like mechanical reasoning and visual spatial and creativity, and all of that's great. However, we still have to have a certain amount of professional behavior, we still have to have a certain amount of productivity, and performance has still got to be there. So how do we meet in the middle? Where is that balance? And that's what I think everybody's learning journey is at the moment. And I think for construction, you're not going to be able to adopt this full scale until we've worked that out, because you've got a safety critical line, and until people know how to hold that line, embracing the whole thing as a huge big, let's everybody come in, let's talk about it, everybody talk about it, could be
let's
quite
have everyone in. Yeah.
Totally. It could be a bit destabilizing. So we need to get those guidelines and those rules settled before as that happens. And I think once that happens, I think construction will come running to neurodiversity, because so many people in neurodiversity in construction are neurodivergent. And by the way, that's the same with the military. That's the same with the military. So 65% of the Department of Technology and Science labs are neurodivergent. And when I was working with the Navy recently, the Commodore who leads their neurodiversity network, he said a hilarious thing as he opened the meeting we were all at. He said, yes, we used to think in the armed forces that we didn't have any neurodivergent people because we're exempt from the Equality Act. And then a few years ago, we realised it was in fact all of us.
It goes from the very top.
Yes, we just realised it was actually all of us. That's why we couldn't really spot anybody that stood out, because it was in fact all of us. And I was like, yes, I thought that too.
Well, yeah. I mean, I look. Someone said a stat about 50. A large percentage of the world is neurodivergent. Right?
15 to 20%.
Doesn't say, and it doesn't say just in Peru amongst the bears, right? No. It is everyone at all levels. And, I go into various meetings and different things, and you go, I don't know why he's doing this. He can't, why is he set up a 2-hour meeting? Because he's not going to be able to concentrate for this long. Because I can see it in myself now, right? Obviously. And I struggled in those. Someone says, right, we've got on all day. You're like, oh, God, shoot me now. I can't do that long.
No, what you need to do if you're having a really long meeting is you need to invite your wife, because she is absolutely hilarious. And it's much funner if people are just being silly and kind of, sending themselves up and teasing each other. That's what needs to happen. Invite your wife; she will make everybody laugh with her impressions of Victoria Wood carrying 2 soups. That's what you need in the middle of your meeting. you need impressions of Victoria
I really do.
Wood.
I would love that.
Yeah. Welcome to the world of Sasharel. We do that all the time because we have these long meetings for IT, and our IT department use Laravel as a coding language. And every time we hear the word Laravel, me and your wife just go, welcome to the world of Sasharel.
It sounds like an Aldi version of Cusharel toilet paper.
It does. Yeah, but Victoria Wood sketches for meetings.
I'll bring it along. But I tend to just not go to the really long, boring ones.
Well, that's a different way of coping with it. Yeah, bring your wife.
I've just admitted that to the world. Just don't go. Yeah. And we've got slightly better with bringing them to an hour, but I see the difference. I'm more aware, I think, of people's differences and neurodivergencies, and just through listening and becoming more interested and reading and listening to your book, available now on all good bookstores. And I go to the very top of our business and I'm like, you could just see the difference that okay, you're not going to listen. You're on one. And if I interrupt you now, you're going to lose your flow, get really pissed off with me. So I'm just going to let you finish and see that. And I think awareness of others, of trying to understand those you work with, rather than just go, dickhead never listens to me. Well, maybe It's not he's not that kind of
Mm,
person. It's just trying to get it off his chest before a badger, sort of
mm.
distracts him and then
Yep.
forgets what it's doing. And I see that a lot at the top of a business as well as on site.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like you say, there's no levels to this. Cognitive
No.
diversity, neurodiversity is very intersectional. It affects all groups of people at all levels of a business. And you kind of, I think what you've hit on there, Stu, is the thing that really underpins all of this. So for me, the neurodiversity movement was never about a group of conditions that
No.
are related, that are protected by the Equality Act. The neurodiversity movement was all about getting people to really appreciate the amount of diversity that goes on in our own heads, between our own
Yes.
heads, because human beings have this tendency to imagine, if they're watching somebody, they imagine that that person has the same motivation as they would have if they were behaving like that. And
Yeah.
so they think that they know. We think we know what goes on in each other's heads, basically, and we do not. So
No.
your man who speaks a lot, who sort of stands there and gives a kind of sermon and just gets a whole load of stuff out of their head. Now, let's say I was the kind of person who doesn't do that, and if I was going to stand up and do a big sermon of getting stuff out of my head, it would be because I didn't really care about anyone else's opinion. I wasn't
Yeah.
interested, and I thought they were all a bit thick. So I was just going to tell them what they needed to hear, and then I was going to disengage. So if I was the kind of person who would only behave like that in those circumstances, when your man stands up, I'm going to think I'm being disrespected. So
Yeah.
I'm going to treat him as if he's disrespecting me. And he's going to wonder what the hell is going on, because he's just got really passionate about something that he cares about. And he's got it out of his head really quickly before he forgot it, so that it all came in one big lump, so that people understood, because that's what he needs to understand. So he's communicated in the way that he needs other people to communicate. But now everyone is treating him like an asshole, and he doesn't know
Yeah.
why. And this is
Yeah.
this is what's going on at a fundamental level, with every relationship, with every marriage, in every team, in every business. I've got a lovely colleague called Fiona, and she is a slow processor and I am a fast processor. So when we first started working together, I would ask her a question about a decision we need to make, and she would just sort of not respond for like 2 days. Meanwhile, I would be going slightly potty and
Nancy's
thinking,
she's gone.
yeah, yeah, totally. Why hasn't she answered my email? What the hell's going on? Why? Fuck's sake, Fiona. And we had, obviously, I've got a slight advantage, which is that I've studied this stuff for quite a while. So I sat down, I went, okay, Fee. So, these are our different patterns. Now, what I've learned working with her is that it's a really good idea to give her that processing time that she needs, because
Yeah.
when I give her that time, she comes back with an answer that I couldn't have thought of, because it's in depth, it's got resonance, it's got kind of,
Yeah.
a critical eye that I wouldn't necessarily have picked up. And what she's learned is that she just needs to say to me, I'm thinking about that. I'll come back to you on Wednesday. And that just keeps me calm. And what
Yeah.
she's also learned is that if we're in a crisis and we need very quick decisions, she needs to sit back and let me run, because I'm really,
Yeah.
really good at that. So what we've got is two very opposite thinking styles. And the reason it works is because we respect each other.
Yeah.
And we don't, I'm not kind of like giving myself a hard time that I'm not a slow processor. I'm like, oh, I feel really bad about not being a slow processor, so maybe I'll just be really rude to Fiona, so that slow processing doesn't feel like a good thing. I'll just sort of ignore it. And she doesn't go, oh, I wish I was Nancy and could make quick decisions. What we go is, actually, sometimes decisions need to be made by Fiona because they need that level of depth, and sometimes decisions need to be made by Nancy because they need to be knee jerk and quick and reacting to market pressures, or a pandemic,
Yeah.
or anything like that,
The
that comes
pandemic.
up
Yeah.
occasionally.
Oh
So
fuck.
so it's
Yeah.
it's getting people to that point where they can go, I don't think like you, and that's okay. I think
Yeah.
like me, and these are the things that I'm good at, and you think like you, and those are the things that you're good at. And actually, if we work together, we'll get more bang for our buck.
And that's
And that is
the key.
fundamentally the underpinning thing of the whole neurodiversity movement. It's fundamentally the underpinning thing of psychological safety, is just kind of it being okay for something not to be your
Bag.
your bag, absolutely, and go, okay, well, that's not my, my husband is very good at finding things, and I'm really not.
You're good at losing them.
I'm really good at losing things. Just preparation for this podcast. I went, oh, I need a pair of headphones. He went, I gave you a pair of headphones. I went, did you? Where are they? When he comes into my office, he went, they're there. They're literally next to my desk. I went, but they were in a bag. How was I supposed to know there were headphones in this bag? I can't see inside the bag. And then I got them out and I said, oh, I need one with a microphone. It was up here. Oh, I need one with a microphone. Oh, it's got a microphone. Right.
It's gone.
So,
yeah.
which is all very well. But you know what Dan can't do? He cannot make chutney and jam. And I have made 250 jars of chutney and jam in the last month.
Jesus,
so there we go.
Nancy.
I know.
We might get also the chutney and jam later then. Well, I mean, but also, I can't imagine Dan being too up to saying, right, in 40 minutes, shall we do a podcast?
No.
I think he might have needed a week to get that ready.
He would,
He'd have wanted
absolutely.
he would have wanted a podcast workflow for that.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Jackie might have been the same.
And it works because we appreciate what each other does. So our marriage is, we've always had this metaphor for our marriage, which is that his job is to keep our feet on the ground and my job is to keep our head on the stars. And, like everyone can see what he does for me, right? Everyone can see that because it's gender mismatched. So often in marriages, it's the female that is very organized and keeps shit together. And it's the male who's kind of not. And it's the opposite way around. So it's like anybody, all of my friends looking at my marriage is like, oh my God, poor Dan, what a saint Dan is. What an amazing father and human, because he actually isn't a man baby. He actually does, stuff. And guess what? I do stuff too. It's just that because it's because I'm a female, everyone just expects that. But what I like to challenge him with is like, if he hadn't got together with me, his entire life would have been zipped up and at right angles. It would have been very, very, very dull.
Boring.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't it? You brought some sparkle from the stars.
Exactly. And chaos. And creativity and fun. Yes. Yeah.
And I think we did. I mean, I see that with, I do so many different things, and I can cope. I can change gear fast, right? For whether it's work or this bloody football, or which I love, and it winds me up at the same time. But and then panto, and then do stuff for the pub, or oh, do me a favour, Stu, we're doing a quiz on Saturday and we haven't written it, we thought you were doing it. I'm like, well, last year you did it. Okay, I could do that in half an hour. Got to think things like that, reactionary stuff. You asked me to plan. Oh my God, I'm shit at it. Like, and openly admit that, if I've got do my expenses each month, which takes forever.
I can't
shoot myself.
Yeah, I can't even comment on that because I've had someone else do my expenses for the last 15 years, and it makes such a big difference to my life. I cannot tell you. Do you know my expenses don't even come past me anymore? Dan has got an envelope by the front door where he puts my receipts for my PA to pick up.
I need that. I need a Dan.
Yeah, you do. You do. But the thing I was going to say to you about planning, have you ever tried doing planning using space?
No.
Have you ever tried to plan by walking around rather than by sitting still? So like make a room into like whatever. Let's say you need to plan something for 6 months' time. So decide that the room is a space that represents 6 months, and then get some Post-it notes and think about all the things that need to happen, and then put them in order in the space. So if like the sofa is the one end of the sofa is next week and the other end of the sofa is next month, and the telly is 2 months' time. So put the Post-it notes in the spaces that represent the time spans, and then once you've put the Post-it notes in those spaces, walk around them and like get to the end of the project and look back and go, are they in the right order? Have I missed anything? And go halfway through and go, right, from halfway through, what do I know about the beginning and what do I know about the end? And plan like that, and then take a photo of it and then write it into a plan. But you use space to do it.
I can do that. It's like my
seriously,
hall's
it's
like a big
revolutionary.
whiteboard.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
it's
try that.
absolutely
My
revolutionary.
ADHD brain's going, oh, I should have got those
Yeah.
bloody post-it notes when I was in WH Smith. Maybe I'll get some in a minute.
Yeah, but it's like
Solve that problem.
for people who do visual, spatial, mechanical reasoning, which you clearly do because you've come up from within the construction industry, so this is your brain space. Then this that way, spatial planning is a revolution. I love
And I
it.
think yes, and I will try that. Definitely try that. And things like that, we need that kind of advice doesn't exist in our sector.
And
Right?
you can do that
Or
in
it does,
meetings as
but
well. You do it in meetings by getting huge bits of flip chart paper and putting them around the wall and around the walls of the meeting room, and getting people to walk around with post-its. And again, it's people are up, they're on their feet, they're moving. That
thinking, moving.
makes you access a completely different part of your brain. People who need to move to think need that kind of process, because sitting still and looking at a box and having to think in that circumstance, that's why you don't go to the meetings. That's why I'm saying bring Jackie, because you just, breaks it up a bit. But the other thing you can do is just plan differently, plan in space, use space to plan.
You mentioned the pandemic before, and that, and not looking into a box. I
So
have
over it.
really.
I'm making an exception for
Well
you
over
this
there.
afternoon.
I know it's a bit ironic that I'm saying that because I'm fed up of Teams, but the good side is in 40 minutes we have a studio, right? But go into work, walk into work, being with people, being in an office or on a site or both is so important. And I come back from work feeling energized usually because you go in and I see little Stevie who looks after the baskets, and he's amazing, this guy. He lives opposite Euston, and he came and literally knocked on the door and said, I've been watching you, can I have a job? And long story short, we gave him a job, and he's gone from sweeping the paths, because we needed to sweep the paths, it wasn't a menial task, to running the secure locker area, where it's the most controversial area because everyone's personal effects go in there, and he loves it, right? And he's a brilliant man. So I go and see him, and then I saw him, and he was a little bit down when I went in, and he looked a bit grey, and, "You all right, mate?" "Oh, I'm not too great, Stu. I've had this, that, and that." So I will help him. Right? Have you thought of this? Have you been to the doctors? Have you have a word with your employer? Go and get yourself a private appointment if you need to, and so do that bit. Can't do that on a screen. I wouldn't have walked past him on a screen.
No,
That is,
100%.
we've got to get out and we've got to see people. If we're going to help people with being their better selves, you've got to meet their better selves in person, and then you go, we've got 5 stories. As you come into Euston, you look at, don't say it's true. There's a big welfare that looks like a well-known fast food chain to me, right? But in there, it is wonderful. It's the most brilliantly thought out space I've ever been in, as a construction site, canteen and offices. And it's going to house thousands of people when we build something. But unless you go in it, you can't be at home. There's lots of people still working from home, and I understand, the world changed and all that. But that human interaction will engender that more trust that, we're all a bit wiser. We can take that wisdom to work now, and we can help people like Steve, or the other Steve who I grew up with upstairs, who has become a running machine, and I would never have guessed it. But I go and see him. He literally has known me since I was born, and we happen to be working on the same project. And he's gone through all sorts of issues lately in his life. But by being in and being with people, by me going in and sitting there wandering around, I don't have a desk. This is the only desk I actually have is mine, is at home. I think I do more. And my strength comes from, I strongly believe I wouldn't be where I am. And yes, I got a diagnosis and I went, oh, that's what it is. But, but I don't think I will be here without that, without being an ADHD, right? I don't think I would be me. I wouldn't be as good as my job. And I think someone else who isn't might struggle to do my job. Maybe
Or
that's
they
why
would
there's
just
only
do it
about,
very, very, very differently, and they would need a different
yeah,
kind of team to the side of them, above them, and below them. Do you know? I think that the idea for me about neurodiversity is about teamwork. It is about having diverse teams. So, a different type of brain could probably do
yes,
your job, but not with the colleagues that you have. They would need
yeah,
there needs to be one of you in the team, or one of me. Then the
yeah,
teams do need us. They don't need all of us, because otherwise that would be chaos. But like one or two of us in a team with a Fiona and a Jackie and a Dan is a perfect mix. So
yeah,
yeah. Absolutely, but back to the remote working stuff, and because that's been an interesting thing for the neurodiversity world. Initially, I mean,
yeah,
I've spent 25 years trying to say to employers, can this person work from home 2 days a week, because it make a massive difference to them, and the employer
yeah.
going, no, it's not reasonable. And the employer then, we then had this big international experiment to find out just how reasonable it was for people to work at home. And we kind of went too far in that direction, and now the world is
Yeah,
trying to come back into a middle space, because what we've learned is that, exactly as you say, too much remote work leads to a breakdown in informal communication, which is not just
yeah,
bad for mental health, but it's also bad for informal knowledge transfer and things like psychological safety. Deepwater Horizon.
yeah.
Oh, by the way, I've just noticed that nut's come a bit loose over there. I think the whole thing's about to blow. Should we give it a tighten? You know, uh,
That's fucking
as the
ace.
safety officer walks past. So you do need that in person
Yeah,
communication, but it's again with neurodiversity, you've got two extremes. You've got people like us who really can't work at home very easily at all, and then you've got the people who
yeah,
really do work a lot better at home. And what you can't do is have a policy that legislates for all of us. One
yeah,
policy isn't going to work. You need a blend, and you need flexibility in your policies, and people need to realize that it's not as simple as we have this one policy and everyone will fit in with it. There's got to be some balance and a bit of just a bit of flexibility, but the principles have to stay the same.
one size does not fit all. It never has, never will. And you've got to look at what's best for the individual, the team, the people, essentially, which is, ta-da, you become more profitable, you become more efficient, your projects get built on time, or God forbid, early, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, I've mentioned some of our projects. The difference in having a private client that goes, excuse me, experts in building things, here's some money, what we can afford. Could you build it for us? And we go, oh, yeah, fine. Off we go. Ta-da, built it on time. Versus public sector. We're a different prime minister now. We want to go straight and faster. And then next one goes, well, can we have a tunnel instead of a walkway? That people have walked across the road for 100 years. But we
So
don't
yes, you
like that one
can, but
now.
it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Gonna cost you loads more money,
Yeah.
and it's just that chaos of all that stuff and all those people that you just. Anyway, I have to be very careful how much I
Small gripe
criticise my
there
clients.
emerging from our
Yeah,
host there. Small
yes, I
gripe,
should.
yes. Is there any projects that you're thinking of particularly?
No,
Are the
not that
projects in
I
the
can
room with us
mention.
now, Stuart, or are they just a figment of your imagination? Who can say?
Who can say? I can't. I'm
No,
making
you
it a lot
can't.
of trouble for
You
saying that
will.
project name. Anyway, moving on.
Oh, look, a
So,
badger.
oh, look, a
A
weasel.
weasel. Oh, look, a
So
weasel.
I brought Waylon out today because you were on here, because that's our other connection and
It is.
favourite pastime, panto.
Yes. Panto,
So
panto.
we're in again this year. You in again this year?
Oh, I haven't decided yet. I know. Like the first time I've thought I would is talking to you if you're going to do it. So I'm
I'm
kind
doing
of
it.
like, I've had a couple of big years in a row. I had a
You have?
director year, yeah, and then I also had I was the witch, wasn't I, last year, which I have to say was my
Yes.
favourite role ever.
When I was Waylon.
Yes.
Oh
And
no, the one
yeah,
before was Waylon.
no,
I'm not going to say I
yeah,
wasn't. Yeah,
I directed you as Waylon, I think you'll
you
find.
did. You
I
did.
did. Yes, you were very good, Waylon. I was very pleased with your performance. It was
Even
very
when I fell
amusing.
through the stage, or the
You just,
backdrop, wasn't it?
yeah. Well, you've just got to laugh when those things happen. That's how you carry on. I mean, Panto is just like a carry-on film, isn't it? You just got to carry on, and make it
Hey,
as silly as possible. Yes, but
no, I
yes,
think I'm going to do it.
I do you.
Um, I, for obvious reasons, with family last year, didn't. But also, as you know, and I will forever owe you a gratitude for this. I was struggling last year, and you went, "Fuck, I know you need to see," right?
Mm,
And I went to see that person. I never mentioned by name, but um, and it changed me. But I needed to get through that, getting
mm,
better, because I wasn't well mentally. But I think there was a lot of shit going on. If you look at the last, everyone's had a lot of shit as well in the last 5 years. I'm not special in that. But dealing with that and the things that we were going on with Jackie's dad, which I've mentioned in other
mm,
podcasts, it's not a secret. I just thought I couldn't do it last year. But I think as I've come out of it, I missed it. And when I
mm.
missed it most was sitting in the stalls in front and watching you come out, and you were terrific as a witch. And then Dunk picking on me for most of that performance when I was in the audience. And I was like, what a great gang of people
Mm.
and friends that I didn't know before Panto. I'd never done it before I got in there with it was 3 years ago when I was stepping in even at Christmas. Oh, one of the pirates is not well. Could you do it? Oh, last time I was on stage, I had a broken arm as a shepherd in the nativity, and my mum could just remember the pastor being bright white. So, and I was like, oh yeah, go on. And God, I loved it. It was brilliant. And then, um, one of my life highlights is dressed as Waylon and the fabulous Michelle Gale come in to watch us. And I had to
Mhm.
throw sweets out, and I got to sing Sweetness, which I remember buying the CD when she brought it out, and
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I think those things in life I never expected to be a high. I never saw coming. So yeah, want to get back into that because I just think it's fab. Right, what a great
Mhm.
thing to do. I'll squeeze it in somewhere. I'll find some room in my life.
What I like about Panto is the intergenerational connections. So
Yeah,
I like that the people that started the Panto Society in our local community, um, their children are kind of running it now, and their children's children are starting to take up roles and participate. And they still come every year, so they might not be in it anymore, but they like run the bar or they run the
yeah,
cafe or they run front of house. And and then you've got, the old guys who do all the set design, and the brunts who do all the props. These are
yeah,
people who've been, they're just contributing to the community. And one of my favorite bits is after we've finished on the Sunday, when we've had our after show party and everyone's a little bit worse for wear on the Sunday and a little bit kind of crinkly round the edges, but everyone comes and we're all clearing up the hall, and you've got kind of, you've got Joe Taylor telling the teenagers off for not using the mops properly. This is how you use the mops. You've got to go around here like this. I've got to be like that. And you've just got this, and they're like, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. And you've got groups of people interacting with each other that wouldn't normally interact with each other. And there's something really magical about that. There's something absolutely magical about that. I just love it. And Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that anyone has as much fun as us doing panto, quite frankly.
I agree. I think it's
Yeah,
so
gets
much
me
fun,
through the
and that,
winter. And you know, well,
yeah,
that's not that. There's
dark
lots of
times.
people who say that it gets you through the winter, because it's, by the time we finished at the end of January, it's February, and then February is a short month, and then it's spring, thank goodness. And lots of people struggle with their mental health over the winter. And coming
Yeah,
together in a group of people and singing and dancing is about. In fact, actually,
yeah,
this is probably a good thing to end on. Um, there's there's a lot of really good trauma writers, people that have been writing about trauma for a very long time, and it's starting to land in the public consciousness now that trauma healing work is not as simple as go and have a chat with somebody, that
yeah,
it's physical, that you carry trauma in your body, that that there's that been that book, hasn't there, The Body Keeps the Score, and it's been very popular, and people are kind of realizing this, that we carry trauma in our body, and that is, if we're going to do healing work for our mental health, we've got to take care of our physical selves. So that's kind of hitting consciousness. But one of the people who wrote one of these famous books, in his last book, he tells the story about how he decided he was going to study how indigenous populations took care of mental health. What did they do? And so he went to New Zealand and he spent some time with the Maori, and they were running a trauma healing retreat. So he's like, I'm going to go on this trauma healing retreat and see what it is that they do. So he goes on the he gets an invite, goes on the trauma healing retreat. So he's there on the Friday night, and there's some people drumming and there's some people dancing and there's lots of food and people are chatting. And he's like, yeah, so when do we do the trauma healing work? And the people running it went, this is it, mate. You're in it.
this isn't
So
just a
yeah, the
jive.
trauma
Yeah,
healing work is we spend the weekend chatting, drumming, dancing, singing, eating good food. That's the trauma healing work.
yeah,
I'm like, oh, reminds me
it's
of the free
panto.
festival movement in the 90s. Is that why so many Generation Xers are intergenerational trauma breakers? Like, we haven't passed on the terrible parenting of our boomer parents, and we've actually all raised children that are non-traumatized. Is this because we basically spent most of the 90s dancing and singing
Yeah,
and listening to repetitive beats? Like, is this it? And there is actually something, in that. That's not like mad hippie stuff. It's actually true that a repetitive beat is good for resetting the brain away from a kind of trauma memory that trips and gives you the wibblies, and all of that community stuff is actually the best way to heal trauma.
and it
How funny is
is
that?
so rewarding. What a great way to finish that off. And I
So yeah,
think,
panto
you
for
know,
everyone.
panto for everyone. Well,
Or not, or
just
raving or
yeah,
pantos.
raving,
Pick
or
your genre, raving or pantos.
or just come and watch me and hopefully Nancy. I'll try and twist her arm, and in this year's panto, and we'll sell it out, and then maybe we'll have to do extra shows and all that nonsense. No,
Oh yes.
um, yes, darlings. No, it's brilliant. And that thing before when you were about the community and the Taylor family, I just think are incredible.
They are
And I
incredible.
always love it when Abby's giving you all the dance moves and you're like, okay, oh shit, I've gone wrong again. And then she go, Gran, not now with a T. Right, carry on. And you're like, oh, this is really funny. And you try not to laugh at the Taylors having a domestic over there because over opening the tea doors too early. No, brilliant. I love it. It's
It
brilliant.
is brilliant. It
Well,
is.
thank you, sponsor, as well. Another community thing. Um, yeah, thank you very much for doing this today. Really appreciate it. And
My pleasure, love. I'm going to go and cook me sardines. I've got sardines for tea.
sardines. No idea what we're having. Pear and blackcurrant jam after foraging with the dogs. Dogs ate more blackcurrants than we. They are wonderful at getting blackberries off and eating them.
Well
They don't
done,
give them to
dogs.
you. They just eat them.
Mm,
Bobby's a bit slower, obviously. Right, enjoy your evening. Thank you
I
very
will do, darling.
much.
Yeah, my actual
See you
pleasure.
soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
A huge thanks to Nance for joining me to record this podcast. We have been hoping to get it recorded for a while now, and having listened back, I do hope you enjoy the genuine connection and flow we have. Look Nancy up on LinkedIn or go to www.geniuswithin.org for more info about Genius Within. And you can purchase Nancy's book, Learning from Neurodivergent Leaders, via all good bookshops and listen to it as an audiobook on Audible.